Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the new City Catechism videos. We're actually a week behind because of some technical difficulties with my phone last week, but we'll get that figured out. So this week we are looking at question number 12. What does God require in the ninth and 10th commandments? So if you think back to the 10 commandments, commandment number 9 is you shall not bear false witness or you shall not give false testimony. And commandment 10, you shall not covet. So what does God require in these commandments? Ninth, that we do not lie or deceive, but speak the truth in love. 10th, that we are content, not envying anyone or resenting what God has given them or us. And once again, this is an example of the way that the New Testament, particularly Jesus, illustrates how the prohibitions of the Ten Commandments and the Old Law correspond to positive requirements if we're really going to live out God's intent for that law. So it's not just a matter of do not do certain things, but also what we need to do. So when the law says do not bear false witness, which is more than just lying, it's specifically lying about your neighbor maybe in a legal setting in a way that's going to harm your neighbor. The positive side of that is that we should be using our words not to harm our neighbor, not to tear them down or destroy them, but to help them, to build them up. And that's why it says speak the truth in love, because we can speak the truth, but do so as a means of tearing people down, as a means of hurting them. And I think that would be just as much a violation of the will of God as lying about our neighbor. Neither of those ultimately fulfill this commandment. And then the 10th commandment says, you shall not covet, which ultimately is about our hearts. It's about contentment. And coveting looks at something someone else has and says, I wish that I had that instead of you. I'm mad, I'm angry that you have that and I don't. And ultimately, that's as the answer this week says, that's a matter of then we're resenting God. We're resenting what he's given someone else, and we're resenting what he's given us. So we're choosing not to believe that he's given us all we need, or that maybe he didn't give us certain things because he knew they wouldn't be a blessing to us. We're choosing to believe that there's something good that God is holding back from us. And so ultimately, it kind of connects back to the first commandment, you shall not have any other gods. Because when we look at something that our neighbor has, and that's the person down the street or someone you know, anybody else has, and we say, I should have that thing would make me happy. If I only had that thing, then I would be fill in the blank. Well, then ultimately, rather than looking to God as our provider and saying whatever he gives us is good and is what we need, we're looking to something else. We're setting something else up above him in our hearts and our affections. So that's ultimately what's going on when we're coveting. And so the fulfillment of this law would be to be content and not to resent what God has or hasn't given us, but to trust him in all of these things. And so that kind of shows how all of these commandments really come full circle and form one cohesive whole. And again, it's a whole that we all fail to fulfill and fail to live up to, which is why we need a Savior. And we're going to continue to dig into that as we get farther into this little series. So that's it for this week. Leave your questions, leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Come on now.